Hey guys, Tyler with Dope Exotics Reptiles. Today I wanted to come here with a bearded dragon video, just giving you some tips and pointers on how to care for your bearded dragon from a young age to an older age. So I guess let's get right into it. Alrighty guys, so getting right into it, I wanted to talk about the difference between juveniles and adults. Starting with juveniles, the basking spot is only a few degrees lower, starting at 110 up to 115. You want to make sure they can regulate the body temperature properly. Always make sure you have a cool side that they can go to get out of the heat, but absolutely do get that temperature there so they can properly digest. Another pointer would be UVB, super important, just as important. It's how the calcium is absorbed into the body, and I would say stick to a 12% if you can from Arcadia. That's my #1 recommendation, but you can do 10%. Next, I'd say 40 gallon is a good starting size. You can use it for about 8 months before that's probably at most, maybe 10 months, depending on growth, before you'll need to upgrade. Now you can keep upgrading to 75, then 120, but I recommend just going straight from the 40 gallon up to the 120 gallon. Now, the reason I use 120 for full-grown adults, and even bigger sometimes, is because they like to move around if you give them the opportunity. And given that, they even like to climb if they can. Next thing, environment. They're very arid and rocky. If they're not sandy, you do not want sand in the environment. That can get in their eyes, it can get in their nose, it can get in their ears, it can get down in their digestive system. It's just no good all the way around. I say stick to rough slate or cocoa fiber, things that they can actually grip to, and then that leads to the next point, which is humidity. Now, you don't want a substrate that's going to stay too moist even after moistening it, so you want to use something that can dry out easy, that will keep the enclosure between 30 and 40% humidity. The next one I'd like to do is substrate. Like I said, cocoa fiber, rough slate. Now, people can mix together the cocoa fiber with play sand, and they do like a 70% cocoa fiber. That does a great mix. I've seen great things come out of that. It does look good too. Next thing I'd like to say is their diet. The diets for the juveniles are 80% insects. They'll have insects every day. You can feed them twice a day. They'll eat as much as you'll let them. Really, they are just lovely buggers. But then as they grow, they do transition into having 80% greens when they're grown. So I would say when they're young, do only 20% collard greens, 80% insects, and when they're adults, do it in reverse with the 80% collard greens, 20% insects. Next thing would be lighting. Now, not talking about the UVB, the reason I say this is because you can get LED lighting and or brighter UVBs to get to the proper lighting, but you'll want 12 to 14 hours of lighting per day, and you'll want it to be bright enough for them to stay active. Sometimes they won't be active if it's too dark. Now, another thing is cleaning. That's a big pointer that a lot of people miss on. You don't have to completely deep clean it every single day, but you do want to make sure you at least keep it clean. Spot clean it each time they use the bathroom, wipe down any rock or take it out and wash it and put it back in real quick. Rock's easy. And make sure you never use too small of rock, but yeah, rock like slate is easy. And then I would say also do about once a month, change everything. Just do a deep clean. Pushing it would be a month and a half. That's why I say Bioactive's great. It lasts a lot longer. Supplements, you don't have to give them supplements as long as you properly diet them, like mustard greens, collard greens, specifically collard greens, giving them what they need. Enough of them that get all the nutrition they need. And then I'd say for the next thing, use you could use droplets in the water, calcium powder on the crickets if needed, but next thing is just stick to the diet that would be natural, so they don't need the supplements. Just do banded crickets instead of house crickets or dubia roaches, and get hornworms and or, like I said, collard greens instead of just doing some romaine. Next thing I like to say is handling and enrichment. See how I'm just kind of letting them sit here the whole time. You never want to do aggressively. You can grab them by underneath like this. This is the most you can grab them, like this. But you do never want to just grab them like that. It will stress them out. Scooping them or letting them climb onto you is really the best way to be able to pick them up. Handling, you want to let them crawl around you. You never, like I said, don't grab them or they will get freaked out and not want to be handled. You can take them on walks. You can have them chase little insects in a little playpen in the living room if you'd like. There's tons of things you can do with them. Let your heart do whatever it wants to, but these guys do get stressed if you grab them, so stay away from that. Health monitoring. Mouth rot can start if they rub up against the enclosure or have a dirty enclosure and end up getting a gash inside during hunting or whatever the reason may be. Always keep an eye out for the tail turning dark, nips on the tail of the feet from after eating, or scarring around the mouth to ensure that you're not going to have any issues when it comes to that. Take them to the vet if you do see that, just to prevent any issues. The darkening of the tail, sometimes it's just shedding, but sometimes it could also be a dead tail. It's like it starts at the bottom usually, and then the tail starts to die until it falls off. Next thing I would say is brumation. That's a pointer that a lot of people ask questions about. Brumation it's not super important. Not all of them in captivity do it. It's really just part of a daylight cycle that they go through in the wild. They will have a few months, or a few weeks that they will just sleep rather than a few months like hibernation. And it's just like a mini hibernation period there, so nothing to worry about. Common mistakes people do not know about, and I did want to point out, is water. Now, bearded dragons cannot see water unless it's moving. So you want to make sure you either put them in it and dabble their head on it or drip it on their head, or you could just pour it directly on them. That's a big thing because they will go thirsty not knowing there's water in there. They're climbing. That's another thing. Big on climbing. They love it. They will climb anything if you let them. I have an enclosure for a Beardie right here that everything is climbable, the walls, and I got a bunch of stuff in it, and she's constantly using everything, even climbing the walls. So I recommend climbing. Definitely do that. And then the last pointer, and just to top it all off, do not overworry. Overworrying can make you do things too much, and that can stress out the animal. So just relax, kind of get into a routine, and just let things go as they go. And then that leads me to the next part. Let's do it. Alrighty guys, so things I already mentioned, but last couple pointers. Adults are 80% greens. Remember that. They do transition on the diet there. Next thing is the enclosure. You do want a 4x2x2. That's so they can have a proper full size and enough room to stay active. They won't want to stay active if their enclosure is too small. Final pointer I want to point out is they do brumate. Now I know pointed out with the juveniles, less likely with them, a little more likely with the adults, not guaranteed, but they will fall asleep for a couple of weeks. Not something to freak out about. And I'd say that's about anything that you need to know for the adults. They will need 115 to 120 degrees, not much of a difference, but slightly warmer for the adults. And that would be it. That wraps it up for today. If you guys have any questions anytime, I'm happy to help. Just send me a message, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Thank you for hanging out with me.